Field to Frontlines, Athletes Pioneering Activism and Social Justice. What is activism and social justice? Activism is a strenuous effort to promote, protest, inform the public of certain topics or issues going on in the world, hoping to produce change in the world. Social justice is the fair and equal opportunity of resources and opportunities among the people in the world. Here are some of the athletes that are now activists. Activist and athlete number one is Ennis Cantor Freedom. He was an NBA player from 2011 to 2022, who most currently played for the Boston Celtics. Ennis Cantor Freedom, pre-activism. Ennis has always been a more outspoken person in terms of political and economic issues, but never really thought about being a full-term activist. Ennis Cantor Freedom, previously known as Ennis Cantor, but after he secured American citizenship in 2021, he added freedom to his last name. During the time of his secured citizenship, he was traded to the Houston Rockets, three-fourths of the way through the season. He was subsequently waived 4 days later after speaking out about the Chinese government and its human rights. He publicly criticized the NBA and Nike for doing business with them, and his candor continued to try and make NBA rosters, but claimed to be blackballed by the league after his career had seemed to come to an end, and has declared that he were to become a full-time activist. Ennis's activism and political agenda. Ennis mainly uses his social status and popularity to highlight and voice his opinions on human rights and social rights. Uyghurs, who are they? The Uyghurs are a Turkish ethnic group that are from East and Central Asia. The Uyghurs originally lived, and is still estimated that about 80% of them are spread among the Tarim Basin in China. Ennis and his views on Uyghurs. Ennis has been a big advocate for unruly treatment and essentially genocide of the Uyghurs in China. Uyghurs have been illegally detained and placed in labor camps where they are forced to work long, hard hours in terrible conditions. They are also forced to live in terrible conditions. Ennis commonly refers to this as modern day slavery. Nike's factories are overseas, and many of the Uyghurs are forced to make Nike products. Ennis on current matters. As we all have seen in recent news and maybe on the surrounding University of Cincinnati campuses and even other universities across the United States, the Israel versus Palestine protests that have left millions marching and shouting Free Palestine, while not 100% claiming one side in the controversy, and it has brought up some very interesting points in the last year to point out the hypocrisy in Palestinian support. In a Fox Sports article published on November 3rd of 2023, Ennis would remark that while people talk on current Palestinians being killed, he would bring up past situations of Muslims being murdered. ISIS was launched in the name of Islam and beheaded thousands of Arabs in Libya, Syria, and Iraq, as well as when Arab countries starved out more than 400,000 Yemens. Ennis said he finds it hypocritical, and it's killing him. Effect of Ennis's activism. While Ennis has not made a direct or real change with his work, he has been noticed by a multitude of people and even news outlets. Ennis also has been noticed by countries in the Middle East, such as his own. Ennis is from Turkey, who has since revoked his citizenship after his activism work started. Ennis still continues to be caught in the public eye, talk certain social and political troubles in the world. Activist and athlete 2, Colin Kaepernick, who last played for the 49ers from 2011 to 2016. Colin Kaepernick in activism work. Colin has been largely recognized by his infamous kneeling during national anthem act in the 2016 NFL season during the growing prejudice against black people among police officers. He is an activist for social justice and against police brutality. Racism experienced by Colin. Colin seems to experience some racism early in his life from his mother. After an apparent hair change, Colin was adopted by who lost their two previous sons after different complications. Colin received cornrows, and his parents were not fans of his hairstyle. His mom called him a thug and that his hair was unprofessional. Career repercussions for kneeling. Colin first sat during the national anthem, which at the time was not viewed as the biggest deal in the world, but then purposely knelt during the national anthem in his second preseason game, which garnered millions of views, opinions, and was breaking headlines across the United States. During the previous season, Colin had gotten injured, which required him to receive surgery and missed the rest of the 2015 NFL season, which also did not help his case for playing in the NFL. After the 2016 season, Colin declined and left the 49ers and was a free agent. He had become weary of the NFL and wondered why he hadn't received any calls for workouts. That was when he realized he was blacklisted by the league's owners for speaking and showing his feelings and opinions. He later filed a complaint for the collusion of him and Eric Reid against the NFL, which was settled in 2019 with monetary compensation for Colin and Eric. The amounts were never settled. Effects across America. I'm sure a lot of people can probably remember that after Colin first kneeled, some other athletes began to follow in suit, while others just voiced their support. But kneeling also reached not only professional, but also college, high school, and elementary level sports. Myself included witnessed even a ref kneeling during the anthem in high school. While kneeling is somewhat faded into obscurity, some other athletes will still voice opinions regarding certain political and social opinions. These images were taken during 2020 NFL season, which started shortly after the murder of George Floyd, which re-sparked the kneeling trend. And in the bottom left, you can see the Los Angeles Rams. Top right, you can see the Washington Commanders, and in the bottom right, you can see the Cleveland Browns. This all happened during 2020. Black Lives Matter and Colin Kaepernick. The death of George Floyd and protests that ensued rekindled the fire in which Kaepernick had once started. Provided by Sporting News, Colin simply stated, "When civility leads to death, revolting is the only logical reaction. As well, the cries for peace will rain down. When they do, they will land on deaf ears, because your violence has brought this resistance. We have the right to fight back. Rest in power, George Floyd." Colin has not much said. Colin has not said much since 2020, but it is clear that he is in good faith, still supports BLM. Also, more examples. The University of Kentucky kneeling before a game in 2021 versus the Florida Gators. Also, Garfield High School in 2016 kneeling before the national anthem, a school in Washington, first when this happened. Colin's overall effect on the United States. Colin has made a greater effect on the States than a lot of other figures in sports. He single handedly pioneered the idea of kneeling, showing support for the black community. He had inspired a whole generation of kids, adults, even other famous figures to support and voice their support themselves. People who support Colin Kaepernick, Jim Brown, former running back who experienced racism in college and the NFL, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, retired NBA player who had played in a less supportive time, Barack Obama, America's first black president, and Megan Rapinoe, openly gay soccer player who played on Team USA. Overall effects in activism and social justice by Ennis and Colin. Both athletes have contributed in their own ways, but both so far apart have supported and voiced their opinions and used social status for good. Colin by kneeling, showing that he will not stand and support the prejudiced practices of some American people, as well as Ennis, who voiced opinions while in the midst of more than capable playing career that he will not stand for the certain unjust treatment and genocide of the fellow Turkish people. These are only a few of the athletes who went from the field to the front lines.